The courtroom was calm. Too calm. No shouting. No drama. Just paperwork and routine questions. The old man stood at the center, straight-backed, hands still, eyes forward. He looked like someone's grandfather, someone you'd never fear. The judge leaned forward with a half-smile. "Out of curiosity," he said casually, "what was your call sign when you served?" A harmless question, a moment meant for small talk. The old man didn't answer right away. He looked up slowly. His eyes weren't angry. They weren't proud. They were empty. Hangman. One word. That was all it took. The judge's smile disappeared. The officer beside the bench stopped breathing. Even the court reporter froze mid-sentence. Because some names aren't earned by luck. They're given after things you never talk about again. And when this veteran finally turned to leave the stand, no one dared to stop him. The courtroom had seen everything. Arguments, tears, anger, lies, but had never seen silence like this. The old man stood alone at the center of the room. He wasn't handcuffed. He wasn't guarded. He didn't look dangerous. In fact, most people wouldn't have noticed him at all if he weren't standing before the judge. He wore a simple blue suit, slightly worn. No medals, no insignia, nothing that suggested a military past. The judge adjusted his glasses and skimmed the file. "Name?" The old man answered calmly. "Age?" No hesitation. "Service record?" A pause. "Just one." "Yes, Your Honor." That was when the judge leaned back, relaxed, almost amused. "Just curiosity," he said with a light chuckle. "Back when you served, did you have a call sign?" A few people smiled. Even the judge expected a funny answer. The old man raised his eyes. "Hangman." The word landed heavier than any gavel strike. The judge's pen slipped from his fingers. The military officer standing nearby stiffened instantly. Because call signs weren't chosen. They were earned. And no one earned that name without leaving something terrible behind. The judge cleared his throat. "Mr." But the old man had already stepped back. Slow, controlled, respectful. He didn't explain. He didn't boast. He didn't defend himself. Some stories don't need witnesses. And some men don't need permission to walk away. No one moved. The old veteran took 2 slow steps away from the stand, his shoes echoing softly against the wooden floor. Each step felt louder than the last, not because of the sound, but because of the weight behind it. The judge watched him go, mouth slightly open, as if word had failed him for the first time in his career. "Mr. Harris, wait." The voice came from the military officer near the bench, a colonel by the look of his uniform. Sharp posture, alert eyes. He had been silent until now, studying the old man from the moment he entered the room. The veteran stopped but did not turn around. "Where did you serve?" the colonel asked. The old man inhaled slowly. "Places that don't exist anymore." A murmur spread through the courtroom. The colonel stepped forward, his expression no longer skeptical. Now it was cautious. Respectful. "What unit?" The old man turned his head just enough for the light to catch his eyes. "Black Operations. Task Group 9. The colonel froze. Everyone else missed it, but not him. His jaw tightened. His hands clenched at his sides. He knew that designation. Everyone in uniform did, even if they pretended not to. That unit didn't arrest targets. They erased them. The judge straightened in his seat. "Colonel," he asked carefully, "is there something we should know?" The colonel didn't answer right away. His eyes never left the veteran. "Your Honor," he said finally, voice low, "that call sign, Hangman, wasn't symbolic." The room held its breath. In certain operations, the colonel continued, executions weren't carried out by firing squad. They were personal, silent, final. A woman in the gallery covered her mouth. The veteran spoke again quietly. "We did what orders couldn't put on paper." Silence returned, thicker than before. The judge swallowed. "And why are you here today?" he asked. The old man finally turned fully toward the bench. "Because when wars end," he said, "someone still has to live with what didn't." The colonel stepped back and snapped to attention. A sharp salute. The sound cracked through the courtroom like thunder. Every officer in the room followed. The judge hesitated, then rose from his seat. "Mr. Harris," he said softly, "this court has no authority over ghosts." The gavel came down once. Case dismissed. The old veteran nodded, not in pride, but closure. and walked toward the exit, leaving behind a courtroom that would never forget the name Hangman. The hallway outside the courtroom felt longer than before. The veteran walked slowly, his footsteps steady, measured, like a man who had spent his life counting steps in hostile territory. The echoes followed him, bouncing off marble walls, but he didn't look back. He never did. Halfway down the corridor, a young soldier stood frozen. He couldn't have been more than 22. Fresh uniform, fresh haircut, eyes wide, unsure whether he was allowed to speak. "Sir," the soldier said quietly. The old man stopped. "Yes." The soldier hesitated, swallowing hard. "My grandfather, he served." He never talked about it, either. The veteran studied the boy's face. He had seen that look before, on medics, on rookies, on men who hadn't yet learned what silence costs. "Did he sleep with the lights on?" the old man asked. The soldier blinked. "Yes, sir." Then he served enough. The veteran continued walking. Outside, the air felt colder. Reporters had gathered by the courthouse steps, cameras ready, questions rehearsed. They sensed something, but didn't understand it. "Mr. Harris," someone shouted, "is it true you were special forces? Is Hangman really your call sign? Did you kill people?" The veteran paused at the top of the steps. He turned, not to the cameras, but to the sky. "I buried friends," he said calmly, "and I buried parts of myself. That was all." He descended the steps and disappeared into the crowd, leaving microphones unanswered and mouths open. Across town, in a quiet government office with no windows, a phone rang. A man in a dark suit answered. "Yes." The voice on the other end was clipped, urgent. "Sir, the courtroom incident, the name Hangman resurfaced." The man's hand tightened around the receiver. "Is he alive?" "Yes." Silence. "Then pray he stays retired." The call ended. That night, the veteran sat alone in a small apartment. No photos, no awards, just a single wooden box on the table. He opened it. Inside lay an old combat knife, its handle worn smooth. Beneath it, folded carefully, was a list, names written in faded ink. He didn't read them. He never did. Instead, he closed the box and pushed it away. For the first time in decades, he allowed himself to exhale. But peace never lasted long for men like him. Outside, a black car idled beneath a streetlight, and someone inside was watching. The knock came at exactly 2:17 a.m. 3 taps. Even. Controlled. The veteran didn't jump. He didn't reach for the knife. He already knew. He opened the door. 2 men stood outside, both clean-cut, suits pressed sharp enough to cut glass. One held a leather folder. The other scanned the hallway without blinking. "Mr. Harris," the taller one said, "we were hoping you'd still be awake." "I always am," the veteran replied. They stepped inside. No threats. No weapons shown. Men like this didn't need them. "You caused a ripple today," the shorter man said, placing the folder on the table. Names were remembered. Files reopened. The veteran poured himself a glass of water. His hands didn't shake. "I answered a question," he said. "Not my fault if people forgot the answer." The taller man opened the folder. Photos. Satellite images. A map marked in red. "Something went wrong overseas," he said, "and there's only one name everyone keeps circling back to." The veteran glanced at the papers. "No," he said. The word was final. "You don't even know what we're asking," the shorter man replied. "Yes," the veteran said quietly. "You're asking me to become something I already buried." Silence filled the room. Outside, the city slept, unaware that history was deciding whether to wake up. The taller man sighed. "Your country needs you." The veteran finally looked up. "No," he said. "It needs to stop pretending monsters disappear when wars end." He stood and opened the door. "Get out." The men hesitated, then left. When the door closed, the veteran locked it and leaned against it, eyes closed. For the first time, his reflection in the mirror didn't look like a weapon. It looked like a man, and that terrified him more than any battlefield ever had. "When you're ready, just say." The sun rose slowly, casting pale light through the thin curtains of the apartment. The veteran hadn't slept. He sat at the small kitchen table, hands wrapped around a cold cup of coffee, staring at nothing. Morning sounds drifted in from outside. Cars, distant voices, life continuing as if the night hadn't tried to pull him back into the dark. He stood and walked to the window. The black car was gone. For a moment, relief washed over him. Then came something unfamiliar, uncertainty. War had taught him how to survive chaos, not quiet. He turned back to the table and opened the wooden box again. This time, he unfolded the list. The names stared back at him, each one a memory, each one a ghost that never learned how to leave. Brothers, enemies, innocents caught in the middle. He had stopped counting years ago, but their faces never faded. "I carried you long enough," he whispered. He placed the list into the sink, struck a match, and let the paper burn. The flames curled the ink, turning names into smoke. When it was done, he washed the ashes away. For the first time in decades, he felt lighter. Later that day, he walked back to the courthouse, not to testify, not to answer questions, but to sit on the steps. People passed him without recognition. That was how he preferred it. A man in a wheelchair rolled past, struggling with a loose wheel. Without thinking, the veteran stepped forward and fixed it in seconds. "Thank you," the man said. "You military?" The veteran smiled faintly. "I was," he said. "I still am," the man replied knowingly. Across the street, a young woman watched from a distance. She was a reporter from the night before. This time, she didn't bring a camera. "Why didn't you tell them?" she asked gently. "Your story could change everything." The veteran looked at the courthouse doors. "Stories like mine don't inspire," he said. "They warn." She nodded, understanding more than she expected to. As dusk fell, a message arrived on an old phone the veteran rarely used. "Stand down. File closed." No signature. No explanation. He stared at the screen, then powered the phone off and removed the battery. That chapter was over. That night, he returned to his apartment, opened the window, and let fresh air fill the room. He placed the knife back into the box, but this time he didn't lock it away. He set it gently on the shelf, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of who he chose not to be anymore. Before bed, he looked in the mirror. For the first time, the man staring back wasn't Hangman. He was just an old soldier who had finally earned peace. Outside, the city slept, and somewhere deep in the system, his name faded back into silence, where legends belong.